Hey guys, Kevin here. This video will serve as a basic guide for the proper hookup of the Profile Prism, RGB halos, and demon eyes that came with your Panther Lights headlights. Regardless if you have a Grand Marquis, a Crown Vic, Marauder, or a Town Car, if your build came with the Profile Prism halos and demon eyes, this video should help you breeze right through that installation. Now, at this point, you probably should have watched the first two videos in the tutorials playlist, one on how to hook up your HID components, and two, how to properly aim your new headlights. But if you haven't done that already, please make sure to watch both of those once you're done here. Now, there's a lot to go over in this video, so let's just jump right in. Now, after you've already separated all of your RGB and your HID components, these are the pieces that are going to get your halos and the demon eyes set up. Number one, and probably most important, is your Bluetooth controller. Number two, you'll have two smaller Profile Prism demon eye drivers. In this case, we have two larger Profile Prism halo drivers. If your package included the Marauder fog lights, you will have 4 of these instead of just 2. You will also receive a pack of T-taps that will allow you to connect all of these without cutting or splicing any wires. Aside from what came in the package, you're also going to need a pair of pliers and a test light or multimeter. In this case, we're going to be using a test light, but you can use whichever one you're comfortable with. So the best place to start, in my opinion, is to get the controller powered up and connected. So what I went ahead and did is I have my power supply down at the other end of the bench here with this little sort of conglomerate of wires here. This is going to represent your vehicle. Behind the turn signal bulb, you have 3 wires. You have a positive, you have a negative, and then you have your flashing wire. Okay, we're going to be using all 3 of those wires for this entire installation, but to gain power to the controller, we're only going to be using the power and the ground, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Now I'm going to move down the bench and show you over here. All right, so as I mentioned, this cluster of wires is going to represent your car, and the first step to getting power to the controller is to start with the T-taps. As I mentioned, the 3 wires behind the turn signal bulb are all going to be used for this installation. So we're going to take a T-tap and wrap a T-tap around each one of these wires. And I'm going to demonstrate that on a separate wire because I've already done that here. So basically, when you have all 3 of your wires exposed, you're going to take one of the wires. And again, this is not anything that you're going to use. I just want you to see this for demonstration purposes. But this is one of the wires. You're going to take your T-tap, and if you've never used a T-tap, you'll see that there's actually a tooth right on the inside of the open end here, okay? And you're going to lay the wire right on that tooth, and it's going to look something like that, okay? Kind of hard to see, I apologize, but you're going to lay it like that, and then you're going to close the T-tap around it. Whoop, it's a little hard to do on camera, I apologize. Close the T-tap around it, grab your set of pliers, and just crimp it shut. And that's it. And now you can see that it goes right through the ends, okay? And there is a slit on the bottom, and this is important because this is what we're going to use to plug all of our other accessories in. So starting on the passenger side, that's what you're going to want to do to all 3 of your wires connected to your turn signal bulbs, okay? And as I mentioned, I've already done that here. I'm going to go ahead and proceed with the demonstration and help you understand why this is important and why we did that. So the next step is to go inside the car and turn your headlight switch on 1 click, okay? And this is what you're going to be left with. Your marker light or your turn signal bulb that's on the outside of your headlight will be illuminated at 50% brightness, okay? So let's go over to that side, grab your test light, and start by grounding the bottom of the test light. Okay, so now that your test light is grounded, as I mentioned, you have 3 wires. You have a positive, a negative, and then the flashing turn signal wire. Now we're going to use the process of elimination to determine which one of these 3 wires we're going to use. Now I want to be clear that these wires are not going to be in the same order as they are in your car, so make sure that you follow this demonstration to do your own process of elimination. So in this case, we have the marker light on. All right, so we're going to start by taking our test light and sticking the probe down the end of the T-tap. And you're basically going to want to put it in the same side where the wire goes into so you can try to touch the metal contact on the inside. As you can see, nothing is happening here. So as of right now, this is not what we need. We're going to move on to the next one. Stick it down in there, touch the metal contact. You can see nothing is happening. That's not the one that we need. By process of elimination, this is the one that should basically have it react. And you can see that it does. This is your power wire for the controller, okay? Because the test light is doing the exact same thing as the marker light is, that tells me constant on is your 12-volt source, and that is going to be your power wire. Now we're going to take one more step to figure out what the other two wires are. So what you want to do is go back over to the car, turn your turn signal on, and then run that same test again. So right now we have our turn signal. Now we already know, we've already made note of which one is our running light, so we don't need to test that third wire again. So now we're going to start with the end here. You can see nothing is happening in the test light. That means this wire is the ground wire. Now just to confirm and make sure that we have that accurate, we're going to go on to the last wire here, and you can see test light is doing exactly what the bulb is doing. That tells me that's the flasher wire. So make note of all three wires, what they are, because we're going to use each one of these during this installation. So I'm going to turn the turn signal off, and we're left with our marker light. I'm going to go ahead and shut that off. We've already determined what each one of the wires are. We have our constant 12-volt source. That is when the test light turns on and stays on. That is our positive wire for the controller. We have the one that flashes the turn signal when the turn signals are on. That is our turn signal wire. That's going to get connected to one of the drivers for the halos. And then the third and final one is going to basically do nothing at all to the test light. That is our ground wire, okay? It's very important that you make note which each one of those three wires are, because that's how we're going to complete this installation. Okay, so moving on to the next step, you're going to start with grabbing your controller, and you'll see this is the controller, all right? And there are 4 leads coming out of the bottom. And it's a little hard to see on camera here, but it basically says 1, 2, 3, and then 12 volt, okay? The fourth one all the way to the right, when you're looking at the stamped on the numbers, is going to be your 12-volt source. We're going to go all the way to the other end, and you're going to see there is a red and black wire that you're going to be using. We've already made note of which of the 3 wires do what. So this black wire is going to get connected to the wire that does nothing at all to the test light. And this red wire is going to get connected to the wire that turns the test light on solid. That is going to gain power to the controller. Okay, so the way to do that, on the end of the T-tap, okay, once you roll it over, you'll see that there's a slit on the bottom part here. You're going to take your connector that comes out of the bottom of the controller, and you're going to basically make sure that the pin that's on the inside of this sleeve goes right inside that slot, push it all the way tight up to the barrel, and that's the connection that you need to make. And then we can go ahead and move on to the next step. Now this next piece of information is very important, and I don't want you to skip this part of the video. All right, so if you look at the other end, the other connections coming out of the bottom of the controller, there are 6 in fact, okay? There's 3 leads with 2 outputs each. So that means you have 3 channels, and each of them have 2 outputs. So what I like to do is hook up the halos in the headlights to channel 1, the demon eyes in the headlights to channel 2, and then if you have a marauder with the fog lights, I like to hook those up to channel 3. Okay, so what you're going to want to do, if you pay attention to the bottom of the controller, all of these connections are black. Okay, the connectors are black, everything is black. And the reason I want to point that out is because the driver has 2 identical connectors. There's a shorter one that has a black connector, and then they have a longer one that has a white connector. You cannot plug the black outputs into the white connectors, okay? Only black goes to black and white goes to white. It's very, very important that you follow that piece of information. Do not overlook that, okay? So now moving forward, as I mentioned, I like to put the halos onto channel 1. So we're going to take both of our drivers and go to the short end with the black connector and plug both of those into channel 1 on the controller, okay? So it's very simple. You just put the tooth lined up, push it in until it clicks, and you're good to go. So now we take this driver, and then the white connector, if you flip this guy over, you're going to see that I marked a circle. That is telling you that this is for the halos. And the reason that this is important is because if you plug this halo driver into the demon eyes, you will absolutely fry the demon eyes, and there's no recovering them short of opening them up and replacing them with a new set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this headlight around and show you what I mean, because you have 2 identical connectors coming out of the back of the headlight, one with a circle and one with 4 dots, okay? The reason this is important, again, circle goes to circle, white goes to white, And then if you look at the LED drivers for the demon eyes, you'll see the same white connector with 4 dots. So make sure the dots on the white connector goes to the other dots on the other white connector. It's very important that you follow that rule, okay? Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the next step. We've already made our black connections to the controller, channel 1, and then we ran the longer lead to the headlight, white to white with the circle. And then the last 2 connections here to be made on the halo drivers are these 2 wires here. You have an orange and a black wire. Now again, we've already determined what those 3 wires are behind the turn signal, okay? So what I want you to do is take another T-tap around the ground wire and plug the black wire in from the driver. And then the third one that's left all by itself is the orange wire. This gets plugged into the one that flashes the test light. Okay, this is your turn signal. This is optional. It's not mandatory. If you don't hook this up, everything's still going to work except for the turn signal features on the halos. But if you do hook this up, whatever color your halos are during operation, green, pink, white, purple, doesn't matter. When the turn signal turns on, they will turn orange, flash with the turn signal, and then go back to the color after you've completed your turn. So again, optional. If you want to hook it up, I encourage it. I think it's a cool feature, but not necessary. Okay. Now at this point, you've already hooked up the turn signal on the passenger side. You're going to go over to the driver's side, do the same test light functionality that you did over here to determine which one is ground and which one is flasher. On the driver's side of the car, you're not going to be using the running light, so you don't need to tap into that, the third wire. Okay. So you're on the driver's side, you're only going to be using the turn signal and the ground. All right. So again, do your process of elimination, determine which ones are which, and then hook up the other halo driver to that side. So run that across from the other side of the car, plug it into the controller, and you're good to go with the halos. So now moving on to the demon eyes, the exact same process applies here with the exception of one thing. Again, black wire goes to the controller, which I usually recommend plugging the demon eyes to channel 2. The white wire all the way at the other end gets plugged into the white wire behind the headlight with the 4 dots. And this blue wire here does not need to be grounded, but what it does need to be is this needs to go to your low beam wire on your bi-xenon harness for your HIDs, okay? And why this is important is the demon eyes themselves will turn on, and when they are on, they generate heat, right? So when your low beam is on, your low beams are far brighter than your demon eyes are, so you're not going to see them anyways, but your extra heat from the headlights on top of the extra heat from the demon eyes will prematurely kill the demon eyes. This blue wire is important to hook up because it's going to turn off the demon eyes when your low beam is on. And it's going to basically extend the life of your demon eye. Okay. Now here's what you're going to do to hook these up. I'm going to grab the harness and show you where to plug this into. So this is something similar that you should have received in your package to hook up your HIDs. All of these connections in here are labeled, and the one connection that is labeled that says ballast is the one that we're going to be using for this, okay? So basically take the connection for the driver's side and the passenger side, and then you're going to take a look at the bottom of the connector where it says ballast. There's a blue and a black wire. In your case, it might be red, but it is blue in this case, but black is usually black. Take your heat shrink right here and just kind of slide it down a little bit, and then wrap a T-tap around the colored wire. In this case, it's blue. Again, it may be red in your wire harness, but this blue wire is where you want this blue wire to go into. Take your T-taps like we've done multiple times already during this installation, wrap it around this wire, click it in, plug this blue wire in, and you are all done. Finish tidying up all of the wires, get everything hidden and mounted the way that you want to mount them. And at this point, when you go into the car, you turn your headlight switch on one click. That should turn your halos and demon eyes on, allowing you to connect to the controller and changing the colors. All right, there will be another video to follow this tutorial going over the basic functionality of the Morimoto app. But before you get to there, I want to be very, very clear here at this point, and I'm going to say it again in the next video. Do not use the settings app of your phone to connect to Bluetooth on this controller. You're going to launch the app first, and the app will connect to the controller, not your phone. If you do that, especially on Android, if you do that, it is a hassle to undo that and get everything connected again. So make sure that you use the app to pair to the controller. See the next video for the details on that. I appreciate everything. Enjoy the hell out of these lights. If you have any questions, of course, reach out to me. I'll do the best I can to get back to you. Take care of yourself, and thanks again.